Nope,
Yeah.
I'm not. Almost.
It's not taking my glasses.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, all sorts of stuff going on.
Got lots going on. Is that bottle around?
That is what it was.
All right.
That's what I heard.
Don't wait for me. All right, okay, well. We're gonna call the meeting to order, so welcome everybody to our May
Can't do this
18th
now.
Board of Education meeting. So if you could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see all your faces here in our boardroom and for your presence to be here with us. I know we have some great recognitions. We've been doing this for the past few months. We've been recognizing some outstanding faculty, staff, students. So welcome, and we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Jason for our recognitions.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Mrs. Spooner. So, as Mrs. Spooner said, we have recognized groups and students over the last year, and we have themes of recognitions, and this board meeting, the recognition is our student athletes and coaches. So we have a number of student athletes and coaches that we wanted to recognize tonight. And Director of Athletics, Health and Physical Education, Kevin Porras, wrote up a little, recognition paragraph that he would like us to read. What we'll do is we're going to go student athletes and then our coaches as our two groups. Mrs. Spooner and Mrs. Ross, when we call everyone up, we'll give you a certificate, and then we're going to take a picture with the two groups, and then if we can do one with everybody together. So just for logistics, and then parents, if you want to grab pictures at any point in time, please feel free. So, and then we'll take a 10-minute recess. We have some goodies, some coffee, water. Just want to say thank you, and then you're free to leave when you're done, or you can stay for the remainder of the meeting. And we won't be offended if you don't, but we just wanted to offer that as a possibility. So I want to first start with our student athletes, and there are a number of you here. I know it's a busy time of year, so some are not here. We want to thank you that are, because again, we know that this is a tough time of year. So this is from Mr. Porras. We are very fortunate and proud to have such a long list of student athletes representing Maine-Endwell as members of the Press Connect's Elite All-Star teams. The Elite All-Star selections are made up of Section 4 athletes who had stellar sports seasons. These selections featured state champions, as well as athletes who had outstanding individual performances throughout the season. Selections for these teams are made by coaches across Section 4, as well as sports writers across the area. Our student athletes at Maine-Endwell are held to a very high standard, and those that make up the following list continuously rise to the occasion and push to meet or exceed these standards. Congratulations to all of the following student athletes. So let's go up now. We're going to call you out. We're going to name your sport or sports that you have been honored in. We're also going to recognize your where you are, senior, junior, because for some of you, we might be seeing you again next year this time of year. So we want to make sure that we recognize that. All right, Tanner Burlingame, football junior. I did not see Tanner, so we're going to skip Tanner. Adam DeSantis, football player of the year, basketball and baseball, and he is currently a game out. Aiden McHugh, football and lacrosse. Anthony Pollacare, football, wrestling, and baseball, again, performing outside. Justin Coleman, soccer, player of the year, and basketball. Caitlin Lamoureux, soccer, basketball, player of the year, softball, and flag football. Congratulations, Caitlin. You just want to wait there, we'll get everybody. Licia Brodley, volleyball and softball. Congratulations. Carly Syak, volleyball and lacrosse.
Thank you.
Cullen Green, basketball and lacrosse. Peniota Anastos, swimming, indoor track and field, outdoor track and field, and flag football. And Liam Hadfield, football, bowling, and baseball. Common theme. And Riley Rowe, bowling, bowler of the year. We'll get it. Let's get that here. I'll tell you what, we'll move that down so we can get it. And then moms and dads, if you want to grab a picture coming out and jump in, you're more than welcome. Congratulations, thank you. You can sit down and then we'll call everyone up and we'll do one with all the coaches and players. So in addition to our athletes being selected for these teams, we're very fortunate to not have one, but 3 coaches of the year for Maine-Endwell, selected by the same group, the coaches and writers. These 3 coaches would be the first to tell you that the reason they have received recognition is not solely from their efforts, but rather the collective effort from their team of coaches that make up all of our athletic programs at Maine-Endwell. The following 3 coaches truly understand that being a coach, and more importantly, a Spartan coach, is more than just X's and O's. They stand out as coaches who do an outstanding job mentoring our student athletes to foster great citizens, teammates, students, and friends. They prioritize having great character, both on and off the field. Lastly, their attention to detail in anything they do is second to none. It is clear that these 3 coaches have had a tremendous impact on student athletes at Maine-Endwell and have taught them various life lessons that they will carry on for the rest of their lives. So on behalf of the district, congratulations to our 3 coaches of the year. Our first coach, who has received the NFL Don Shula, New York Giants, Lou Rotino, and Press Connect's High School Coach of the Year, Mr. Matt Gallagher. Our second Coach of the Year, Christopher Verity, 22-23 Press Connect's High School Coach of the Year. Mr. Verity. And our last Coach of the Year, Mr. Eric Williams, 22-23 Press Connect's High School Coach of the Year. Anyone else? 3 coaches of the year. That's pretty rare. That's rare atmosphere. So at this time, we just want to take 10 minutes. We'll pull the screen back. There's some goodies. There's some water, coffee. Please stay. We just want to say thank you. Congratulations. Or if you'd like to want to leave, congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. That's what your plan. Congratulations.
Thank you. That's all. Promise well. Thank you.
Good season. Very nice season.
Yeah. I think they have a pretty good team this year. It's fun to see. Yeah. I wasn't there. They came back from the gas station with their name or something. Yeah. No, it's great. I watch
It's like game 5 is bad enough.
I appreciate that.
Yes. All right, so we are going to continue on, moving on to our reports and presentations. So we will have our student board member, Ava.
Hi. So at the high school, we have a spirit week planned for next week. Monday will be Color Wars. Tuesday is Taylor Swift Tuesday, which sounds good. But we had a vote on it and it won 11-4. So it's different, but it's fun.
What lost?
It was gonna be Tropical Tuesday.
Okay.
So we bumped that to Wednesday, which is now Hawaiian Day.
Okay.
And then Thursday is gonna be Blue and Gold Day, followed by a pep rally for the whole school. And then this past week, all of our music ensembles went to NISMA and each received a gold award, which was really cool.
Yeah.
At the middle school, they will be hosting their spring carnival next week. And then after Memorial Day weekend, they're holding elections for student council officers. At Maine Memorial, they had student council kids present to their EKK and first graders about how to stay safe online. The kids did skits to show them scenarios that were kind of relatable since all kids are on social media now. And it was received really well. So tomorrow they will be presenting for second and third graders. And then BAE engineers came to present their buses. I think it was the electric buses. That was what I saw posted to show how they work to their students in grades 3 through 5. And then they're also hosting a spring carnival tomorrow evening, sponsored by their PTA. And then Homer Brank said, as the year ends, they will be reflecting on what they can do to make our school and community even better for next year. And then district-wide, we're hosting our first ever luau. That's all student councils have put a lot of work in on Sunday from 12 to 3.
Here.
And that's at the high
Yes.
school.
Yes.
It's the same day as the music trip.
Yeah, that was a big thing because a lot of people that were involved were upset about that, but it was kind of the only time that would work.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ava. We appreciate all the information, so thank you so much. Going on to the superintendent's report, Jason Van Plessen.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I'd like to start by welcoming Brian Grinter with Chase Construction. Brian and I will be giving an update on the capital project, and in particular, a small item that we may be having to come back to you on June 12th with a proposal. So Brian, I don't know if you want to just give an overview of the issue, and then we can talk about our conversation with SED and kind of what our next steps are going to be.
All right, so this is pertaining to what we call phase one of the capital project. Phase one is the new sanitary line that's going to go on what's that, the east side of the high school. And it also includes repaving the parking lot, which is pretty much going to get destroyed when we put in the sanitary line. It also includes the new lot north of the swimming pool. So the problem is when we started the capital project, we had all these SED guidelines, which we based all of our schedules on. And then in March, we found out that SED pulled or removed what they call expedited review. So now the review time, so as you probably know, anytime you do anything significant construction, you have to prepare plans and specs and, let SED know what you're up to, especially when it comes to safety things. So those documents have to go to SED, their offices up in Albany. They review them, make sure you're meeting all the codes, and they have to approve them. And that process varies depending on how many schools across the state are submitting documents for review. So it varies. Sometimes the review might be a month. Sometimes I've seen 1 year back in 13 or 14, it actually grew to 50 weeks. We had to postpone a project a whole year. At any rate, make a long story short, so we were counting on a 5-week review because that's what the expedited review was. Well, they removed that. That's not an option anymore. And now you get in the queue for the standard review, which at first was like 6 to 8 weeks, wasn't bad. By the time we got our documents in, because we couldn't start it until after the project was approved. So now it's growing out to like 12 to 14 weeks. And 12 to 14 weeks, we put our approval like toward the end of July. And we really need to start the project around the 1st of July to get it done in time to open school the first week in September. We've talked to the contractor. If it really was towards the end of July, we could probably the skin on our teeth, we could probably make it work. But we can't guarantee that. Jason made the effort of calling what they call the project manager at SED for this particular project to try and get some options, get some cooperation. And to be honest with you, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to me, it was not a very, it was polite, but not cooperative.
It was a polite, sorry.
Yeah.
So we said, well, it's sanitary line, sewer line. And as Brian said, it's currently running underneath the bleachers. So if it were to fail, we would, and school was in session, we would have to close school for a period of time because we wouldn't have sanitation line. Now, we don't know how long that would be. We know that that would be a significant emergency and we would do everything we can to obviously mitigate it as quickly as possible. But the reality is it would shut school down. So one of our tactics with SED was to say, if this were to happen, knowing that the time to get this approved is putting us in a crunch, can we declare this an emergency? The board then declares it an emergency project because it has to be done. And then you do the work and then SED reviews it with the hope being that they will then still fully aid it. So Ms. Clark, who we spoke to, the lady, the reviewer at SED, had said, your board decides what's an emergency project. So the state doesn't come in and say that's an emergency, the school district does, with council, advisement from council to make sure that it's truly an emergency. But we weren't confident because the argument is if it's not currently broke, then why is it an emergency? And our point being, it's broke before. We did have a break, I think 2 years ago. Thankfully, it was where we could fix it. We didn't have to shut down school. We did have a video camera go and scope it today. They found some deteriorations. There are some concerns. What we're hoping for is that we can come back and say to you, it's a verifiable emergency. We need to declare it an emergency, get the work done this summer, still feel very confident that it will be funded through building aid, but not wait for the standard review that currently, I think she said August 4th is our best case scenario. Like Brian said, we could get the line done, but the parking lot's not going to be redone. It's going to be a mess and it's not going to be.
Well, and we can't look the contractor in the eye today and tell them you will have a contract the 1st of August. We think they will,
It could still be pushed.
but if SED pushes this back another week or two, which is nothing to do, in SED world, delaying another week or two is nothing. That happens all the time.
So are you saying because we know that there's erosion, that we could declare that as emergency now? Or
Well,
we'd have to wait for something to happen?
well, that's what we're trying to build a case for is that because of the deterioration, we want you to feel comfortable declaring an emergency so we can do the work and not then worry that SED will come back and say it's not an emergency. So between now and June 12th, we're going to package up, if we have to, what we feel is an emergency project for you to hopefully approve, and then we can move forward with the work getting done.
Okay.
That's the only way right now that we feel we can do this without truly gambling that something's not going to happen between the start of school and whenever we can start that project. And the reality is, Brian, even if it's approved, let's say in September, we're not going to be doing that work during the school year because of how disruptive it is. So that's why the summer was critical. That's why the expedited review. And if you ask SED, and we've asked, and many school districts are in the same, they just pulled the plug on it. They just said, we're not going to do that anymore. And they really haven't given anybody a solid explanation other than they don't have to and they don't want to. And we had even said, can we pay for it? Is there something we can do aside from, we're not trying to, bribe, but what can we do? And it was a firm, there's nothing you can do. So that's what we want to do. Come back to you in a couple of weeks, hopefully with a legitimate emergency plan.
Would that emergency plan still include the parking lot over by the pool, or it would no longer include
The
that
parking lot by the pool is probably going to get done this year.
regardless? Right,
Because we really don't, that's not critical that we start that
right.
in August.
It
We
wasn't a
can
package
do
deal.
that without disrupting classes. Sorry to
Right.
interrupt.
No, that's okay. I was just making sure it wasn't like a package deal that you were doing both at the same time.
It's
the
it's
same,
the same project,
okay,
but there's no
It
real
doesn't
time limit. If you do part of the project this fall and part of the project next spring,
Okay.
That's not a big deal.
We just hope to have it ready.
What about, what about one of the reserves?
Yeah,
Is
so
the cost, would it fit within what we
like a
have,
repair
the
reserve?
repair reserve?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know, Brian. We had talked about that. That's something we have to talk about that. We have to get
And that's not really the problem.
advisement.
The problem's not the money. The
I know,
problem is
but-
getting the status.
I know, but if you use that reserve, if you don't have to
But that wouldn't
wait,
change anything.
right, you don't have to wait.
You need the approval. You need the
You still need the
emergency.
approval.
Yes.
But you would declare it
Sold me on the emergency, just.
on June 12th. Remember, the last time we've done an emergency project was 2011, September of 2011, when the flood hit and it destroyed our maintenance facility. The board declared an emergency project. We built a facility over here behind the,
But that was a no-brainer.
Right.
Your building's gone.
Right.
I mean, you don't need an expert to come tell you, my building's gone, it's an emergency. One of the problems we're having now, quite frankly, is defining emergency.
What's an emergency?
Because you might go to one doctor who says, if I was you, I'd operate tomorrow. That's, your knees deteriorated. You go to another doctor, he might say, I've seen worse. Let's let it run its course for a few weeks before we operate. So we're trying to get the data right now to prove our point that it is an emergency. We've got to get engineers primarily to think like us and give them the right data to get that definition.
So if we go ahead and declare and say it's emergency, we do the work, and then we're still waiting for SDE to approve it, right? Even after the work, and then let's say that they deny it, then,
it's not aidable. We're not gonna get building aid on that.
okay. Yeah.
Which, is that the worst case scenario? No.
Mhm.
However, we try to maximize building aid, and that's the whole reason why we package it the way we do.
Right.
And how much money is that?
Brian, do you have?
Just, well, the sanitary line.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to do the parking lot. I don't know, you probably look at $300,000-$400,000.
It's not millions, but
It seems like closing school would be the bigger issue, because that doesn't sound like a one-day close.
No,
No.
I wouldn't think so.
well, we explained that and their point, like Brian said, and the analogy's perfect. Again, what's the emergency? It hasn't broke yet. So you can project that it could and the impact that's gonna have, or you could wait 5 years or wait, hopefully not 51 months to get approval and it never breaks. So we're trying to convince them that in our minds, it is an emergency. And that's why having some data like a hole in the pipe and, some blockages, because that was their point. And I think they made it very clear, Brian, it's our decision, your decision as a board if it's an emergency. Because if SED comes back and says, well, we don't think it is, they just don't aid you. So we're still gonna do the work, or we can do the work. We just are trying to get SED to agree with us. Now, if we come back to you on the 12th and it still feels like SED is not, they're not sold, that's gonna be our conversation on the 12th is, we feel it's an emergency, we're asking you to declare it, we may not get aid on it, are you okay with that? And then move forward, because we are not comfortable waiting. And like Brian said, the contractors have to know that we're gonna do the work, we can't keep.
No, we can't wait till August 1st and let them give them a yes or a no. They need to know probably at least a month before that.
So, and we feel like June 12th will give us enough time. So we'll come back to you and we'll get you some more information, obviously, as we get it. But I know today we were scoping the line and we don't have a report yet, but I know that there was some findings, so we hope that's beneficial to our argument. Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Brian regarding capital project? It's pretty quiet right now, so there's not a lot to report, but it'll pick up. Anything else, Brian?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
All right, next item is our Q3 academic report. Now, one thing that I wanted to know, we took your suggestions about wanting some more data to compare. And if you want more, please don't feel bad about saying, what about this, what about that? So we want you to kind of use this as an example of what we're trying to do to get you more data. in a different format. So Julie, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So for quarter three, here's our attendance data. And so we've added back on quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, so you can see the numbers. And if you look at quarter three, kind of, let's see, up there, it would be like a middle yellow color, I guess. If you look at just with quarter two, I mean, I think the numbers look really good for us. Usually quarter three is when we start to see a pretty good nosedive for some reason, and then four, it picks up again, whether the end's in sight or kids can see the end. But I think the numbers have held pretty well. I mean, obviously, we'd like them to be lower, but from 2 to 3, our attendance numbers have decreased at 3 of the schools, and then for the high school, where lots of times we see a greater change is pretty low. So not too
Is
bad.
that okay? I know you had said we want to see some comparison. We can keep working on that, but that just gives you a comparison. And then what we can do is year after year, we can have that longitudinal data to compare. So,
Yeah.
okay.
And this is the academic data for our secondary level. So you see on the left-hand side, high school's on the top, and then middle school. Same data that we gave you, but now you can see quarter 1, 2, and 3 together. So again, you can look at the quarter 3 data. And again, usually there's, a huge nosedive, but I think we've kind of held fairly steady. But not, I mean, again, we want those numbers lower, of course, but considering, what has happened, we're getting there. So there's a big push at both schools, and some things are being put into place, which you're aware of, that are working, so.
The one note under quarter 3, you'll know for the high school, I mean, that's pretty telling. The percentage of students that are failing, multiple failures, also have higher absenteeism. So, it's not a striking
Yeah, there's
correlation.
statistics that say, if you have 10 or more absences, your grade drops. I don't know how true it is, but yeah. So I put quarter 2 and 3 here, the benchmark data. It hasn't changed. We benchmark everybody in the beginning, mid-year, we benchmark students who are grade level or more below, and then we will benchmark everybody again. So at the end of quarter 4 is the data that you'll really want to look at from a benchmark data. So we haven't been benchmarking students yet. That window doesn't open. It'll open real soon. So this data really for the elementary is the same.
And then that's, the homework break manual.
Yeah, homework break and memorial.
The way this data, how it lays out, we're working on how to show a comparison.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that. It's a lot of data. We're just trying to figure out what makes sense.
Yeah, it's difficult. So the RTI update here, Maine Memorial and Homer Brink. So you can see now the quarters, tier 2, tier 3, and then there's tier 2, which is tier 1. Remember, is what the teachers do and the assistants the teachers offer. Tier 2, we offer some interventions. Tier 3, then we're looking at small group pullout, things like that. The third quarter that you see that's in bold is a total of those. So it's the total of tier 2 and tier 3 kids in a grade level. I think the good thing to look at literacy is, as you would expect, I think the number is high in K, and we are making a decline at Maine Memorial, which is the one on the left, and then at Homer Brink on the right. You'll see the numbers decline as we go up through the grades. So that's good. That's good for us. The math, you see some, a variety of numbers there. We've already started working on alignment with our math curriculum, and it's a regional effort. And so there's a lot of summer work that will go into that too, and vertical alignment in our school, as well as regional alignment, and really trying to look at supporting documentation as to what supports the curriculum. So it's a question. We have companies just keep coming in. This is aligned to the next gen standards. This is not aligned. What program do we use? So we finally made the decision. I think I told you this, probably it was between quarter 1 and quarter 2, that The modules are really the direction that we should stay with. They're matching the new assessments with the state, and then we just have to supplement them. So once that decision was made, now we've got to put everything together, and that's gonna take summer work to get our teachers together and our math leads and stuff. So that will be our focus this summer, will be on math, so that we can really look at the work. And then involve our AIS teachers and our math support staff.
Is there a way to tell if the kids toggle between 2 and 3? Like if you become tier 3 and then you meet the standard, do you go back to tier 2 or do you go to tier 1? And are there kids, let me ask you that first.
No, I know what you're asking.
Yeah,
I mean, you could, but Bill, you can, it doesn't happen too much. It's a
Yeah.
pretty solid move, because if they're on the fence, we're keeping them and
You
just
are.
supporting
You're
them.
there for,
So,
you're there for that quite a while.
Yeah.
Time frame. Then you kick, what you're asking is you're gonna go from 3 to 1 or nothing, no. You're gonna go back to 2
Yeah.
most times, and even when you go to I'm exited, you're on watch.
Yep.
So what we don't have up there, which we could have, is we're watching you, and that could be for a whole school year that we're
Yeah.
watching you,
I think,
so not typically do you get a kid at 3 and they're in it for a while going,
oh, that
holy
would,
cow, it's a miracle,
Yeah.
you know, then
Yeah.
they basically go back and let's lessen the.
yeah.
oh, they don't exit and come back in? You don't see that?
If they exit tier 3, you mean? And
Yeah.
go back to tier 1?
I don't know, that's my
No.
question. If they
3 to
exit tier 3, what do
three
they
to
do?
2,
3 to 2.
and then if you can get to, 1 is classroom,
Right.
right? So once you get to classroom, are you on a watch? Absolutely, for a while.
How,
And you can get back in,
Mhm.
you know, because let's say it's now, and it's towards the end of the school year, and you're in 3rd grade, and 4th grade hits you pretty hard in the fall, and you're like, oh, now they're, you know, summer slide, they're struggling a little
Mhm.
bit, and things like that. You know, it can happen. It's some yes, and some no. If you see some of those numbers that are like encouraging, wow, look at that drop off, like going 19 to 8 and 9 for the ELA. Just that year of growth and maturity and learning, you know, even that, I'm not learning to read, I'm reading now to learn. And that's where we can see the kids some of them take off, and it's that celebration of, okay, you know what, those early interventions really work.
do you see kids exit, how often do the kids that exit, like say tier 3 at the end of 1st grade need the support to 2nd grade, into 2nd grade? I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know.
Many, I mean,
those
if
kind
they
of
go
numbers.
3, they're coming in
Are
at 2.
those,
Yeah.
So if you're exiting, you know, right now, if you had some 1st graders and said, we're exiting 5 of these kids
right,
towards the end of the year.
right.
They're on a major watch going into the next year. It's just the way it is, just because the curriculum, the rigor, the
Right.
independent work
What
that's
happens
needed.
over the
That's,
summer,
Do
and a
you
lot
not-
of it's summer slide
Right.
coming in. A lot of it's-
Exactly.
yeah,
if
So
absolutely.
they've done
do
any
those
work over
kids
the
get-
summer.
not get tested again till,
In the fall,
in the fall,
early in the plus,
early in the fall?
now, with the enrichment, with the summer enrichment, that's
Make an
supposed to,
impact.
one of the main tenets of that is let's attack some of the summer slide, not just get them ready for the next year, but let's keep them moving. And, you know, I mean, just look at the last 2 or 3 years with the enrichment, how that's grown. The summer, it's like, boom, then we have it to 2nd, now we have 3rd, and we're talking 4th in middle school, and
The middle, yeah.
yeah, so
That
really,
was nice.
it seems to me like in the pretty near future, we're looking at like a K-8 summer program.
Yeah,
And,
Nice.
and a lot of people are getting involved in it, so I think that helps. And it's one of those, it's a more long-term investment, you're not just gonna see it over a year and say, all right, this is great. It's those same kids going year after year and doing some things over the summer, whether it's week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever they do, it all helps.
Right.
So I think those can help those numbers decline throughout the year.
and do many of these children take advantage of our summer program?
Yeah, we strategically go after certain kids just to encourage them a little more strongly.
Yeah, we
To
try
get
to
involved,
get
yeah.
most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know exactly who they are, and we know when they're getting letters home, or when we're making phone calls, or when we're encouraging more. to be involved, so yeah, a lot of them are.
Is tier two, 1211, or is that a co-top?
No, none of, if you look at,
None of that?
if you look at,
Tier, what is?
tier 2 and tier 3, look at 1, 2, and 3, look at intervention for 1, tier 1, that's everybody. If we were all still in school, we would always all be in tier 1.
Okay.
So whether you're 1, 2, or 3, you're getting tier 1, which is best practice by your teacher, and then other people who push in or pull out or anything like that. But that's mostly classroom. So that's just good, strong strategies, which is why we have summer work and curriculum and send people to things to advance themselves.
Can you talk
as
about
instructors.
tier two a little bit
So-
more?
Yeah, I think he needs to.
So you're in
Just
tier
explain
1
the
and you're
levels.
starting to notice that a child is struggling. It could be behavior, it could be ELA, it could be math, it could be a lot of different things, but let's call it academics. So I'm starting to struggle in the classroom a little bit, and my teacher's saying, hey, you know what, I'm gonna start tracking some stuff here because Billy looks like he's struggling a little bit in these certain areas. So I'm gonna start tracking those certain areas, because if I go to a team meeting with our people in the building and say, I wanna bring this to the RTI committee, first thing they're gonna say is, what are you gonna track? So our people know, get your ducks in order at a time. So if I go to that meeting and it shows that I need something for Billy, then the committee might say, you know what, why don't you reach out to Mrs. So-and-so, and let's see if a couple times a week she can either push in, or why don't you pull them out in the hallway, do a little group work. She's gonna track things as well. Let's see if that works. The goal for that is, if that works and you're tracking it, you go back to committee and you say, all right, Billy's at tier 2, but he's actually advancing himself pretty good. Well, is the intervention working? Yep. Okay, let's continue to do that for another time period. Let's meet again. Then you meet again, you say, wow, he's really taken off. I think he could go back to just some tier 1 in the classroom. Okay, let's do that. So that's how that works.
So tier
If you
two,
go tier 2
tier
and
two
it's
is
not working, now you're starting to think of a couple things. It's never, the goal is never to, let's classify this kid. That's not the goal. The goal is to not do that by doing tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3. But if you're still struggling at tier 2, then now we're gonna say, you know what, we were doing, we had her coming in and helping a little bit. Let's make that every day. Let's now get him to the reading teacher. Let's put this on the docket as you're gonna be a reading kid. I'm just choosing
Right.
reading as a thing. So now it's more intensive. Now it is, like if your kid was struggling, you say, I'm gonna check in on your stuff once a week, make sure you're doing your work. But if they're struggling, you say, hey, nice going. I'm checking every day now. And I'm gonna really make sure you're doing your work. Same thing in our school is saying, we're gonna work every day on some targeted skills with you. And that's gonna go over a 4 or 6 week period to give it time to say, this is really an area that this child is starting to grow at with interventions, which then could kick it back to a 2, or you could stay at 3 for quite a while. And then if 3 doesn't work, after a while, you start saying, you know what? We've exhausted all the interventions we can give this child without doing some academic testing and looking at, is there a disability? Is there something that we need to do to make a plan? Like if they got classified like 504, IEP, et cetera, to say they need something. They may need preferential Cs. They may need to go in what you said at the beginning. They may need to get tested, and if they qualify to get classified, go into a room where you have a SPED teacher half the day. And when you don't have that, there's an aide in the room, or we still do some tier 2 or tier 3 interventions. So we're really giving you a dose of extra people and extra strategies.
So are the parents aware that this is happening
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
they're in tier 2 and tier 3?
Yep, yes, as
They're
soon as,
notified and
yes,
involved.
there's a
It's
letter
just very
goes
different
home.
from when my kids were in the elementary school.
Yeah, no, this is
Yeah,
fair.
very different.
Yes, very different, where a lot of that stuff happened when your kids were younger, and you might not have known about it, but everything is more structured now, and there's There's just rules to it.
Oh, I feel like it would have been amazing when my kids were that
Yeah,
age.
yeah.
I'm
And I,
super
and I
excited
would,
about
and I would
this.
tell you it happened, but there weren't as many regulations where people were like, here's a letter. It was more like a phone call or a parent-teacher conference, like, you know, here's some areas we're working on, and we actually have them with a reading teacher or a math instructor or something like that. So now it's a letter goes home, and then it's a phone call from the teacher. And it's just, hey, I'm letting you know, I'm probably, I'm gonna probably take your son or your daughter to RTI. Well, what is that? And then they should be informing that parent of everything that goes in with that. And it's not a bad thing if
No.
your child goes to it, because it means they're getting the help they need. At the end of that whole process, it's supposed to be 3, what Lynn was at, 3, let's go to 2. Okay, let's go to 1. And you're in 4th,
Yeah.
5th, 6th grade, and you're like, you know what?
It's all recorded too, all the data is like it's all there, so it follows students, so if there's any
Right, so-
issues, you can look back at the data.
In the fall, can you do also a report, so it will show us, you know, they have the summer enrichment program and things that are happening, so we can see like, oh, these 3rd graders that are now in 4th grade, like, how many maybe have moved out of a tier, or, you know, just to compare. Not sure.
Yeah, the tracking of the.
Yeah, I mean-
The students.
We could.
I think what you wanna see,
I,
what
it's
you wanna
hard for me
see there
to
that'll tell.
articulate what I'm,
No, I know exactly
Okay.
what you're saying.
and I don't know how you
We
would do
could, it's
that,
just
but.
all things aren't equal, right? But we
Mhm.
could
Mhm.
certainly say where they're at and whether or not they participated in the summer program at least.
Yeah.
We have no
That's gonna give you
idea else,
data to say, oh, these kids
But
that,
we could definitely do that piece of it.
okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
it won't definitely target like
Yeah.
Mrs. Geller was saying, it's not like,
But
oh, that's
exact
it.
science,
Yeah.
but-
It could be a variable, but what you might wanna see, and I think what you're asking is like, all right, so if we looked at this data at end of the fall, and you
Yeah.
said, all right, 3rd grade was 16, 25, and 41, those same kids are in 4th grade, and now it's not 41, it's down to 38.
Yeah.
And why? Well, those 3, but you might have other kids come in, you know,
Right.
so it's
Right.
kind of
Right.
fluid there.
Right,
But it would tell you something.
But it'd still be
It's making me
interesting to
think of the old data. We used to look at some old cohort data that was following those kids for New York State
Yes.
assessment. You could probably do
Yeah.
similar stuff, but
Yeah.
Julie's right. It's not,
yeah, I know it's not gonna be perfect, but
Yeah.
just to give us
But
a little bit
I mean,
of
we
a-
assess 3 times a year with a STAR assessment that you have to per
Mhm.
New York State, which is what we use to gather some of the data and to put kids on a watch list based off cutoffs and things like that. It's called the STAR assessment. So we use that. So we could certainly look at that and pull that data. And then when we do it in the fall,
Yeah,
just look. But
Who
yeah,
provides tier 2 services?
it depends on, again, depends on what it is, what they need, because you're really grouped based on your deficiencies. So, you know, it's very individual.
No, I know, your
So-
needs maybe, but, and who's the provider for that
Right, so
additional?
depending on what your needs are. So, because tier 2 could be behavioral, could be literacy, could be something, it's very specific. You're addressing skill-based stuff. So it's not like, oh, they're tier 2 literacy. It's not that easy. It's their tier 2 in decoding, they're tier 2 in
Right.
phonemic awareness, like, so it's very specific. So it could be a literacy teacher's coming in and maybe doing whole group and the teacher's assessing it. It could be, you could have, it could be anything. It could be a co-teacher that's maybe doing a small group. So
Okay.
it's all different depending on how it's set up and numbers, and each school doesn't match depending on staffing and what the master's, it's
So-
very different.
I guess my question is,
Yeah.
that's additional support that's provided
Tier 2
beyond
is
the teacher?
additional support to a student than what they normally get in a classroom, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's, okay.
Yeah.
Good, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, and we can put that chart, for us, it's just, we do it every day, but we could put that chart in here to remind you, because we have a chart that shows like behavioral interventions and things in a general sense, just to put it up every time. Because we live it, but I
Yeah,
forget,
it's more information.
So we
is-
can add
more
the
knowledge is
pyramid of
great.
interventions in the presentation so that it's there.
And then we combine the two because as a district, even though you have 2 different buildings, so this district-wide one is new. And that just gives you a flavor. And then we added, again, to see how it, like Julie said, how it's declining as they get closer to exiting 5th grade. So So that's just to give you a visual representation of what the data looks like and the trend.
Okay, and then this is just
So I'm
our,
sorry,
yeah,
what did you could add a pyramid of what?
it's called a pyramid of
Of
interventions.
interventions.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it just
that's-
shows what our RTI is in a
Okay.
general sense, so we'll put that in, and
Okay.
that will help.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
It's
that will
usually
explain
in
more.
Vanessa's report, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we all use, K-12,
Right.
and it's just second nature to us, but I think it's the visual, but if we put it in every quarter for you to
Yeah.
see and just went over it, it would probably help. No, it would definitely help. So this is just, again, this is the anecdotal, information about our social emotional learning and, I mean, we'd like it to all go away, but you can look in the real world and we're a reflection of what happens in the real world. And so we are seeing still a ton of anxiety in our students around all sorts of stuff. And adults too. I
Yeah.
mean, so we're just still, just like anywhere. We have a really good team and we're working together. Vanessa works really hard. We're becoming much more uniform. And we have some things on the docket this summer that we're gonna work on. And we're just plugging along. I mean, they're doing a great job, but it is exhausting work. And we've started to put lessons in that we necessarily didn't do before. So our counselors, social workers, I mean, we're going into classrooms and doing lessons consistently about anything. If you're talking about age level, how to make friends, how to be nice, how to be on time, how to be ready for school, how to study, like anything that you can think of, we've been starting to teach.
Yeah,
So to try to help.
and is that a package? Is that a product you bought that's
So-
leading you in that, or is that something that
We
you've
use-
seen and you've developed
Well,
lessons
we
on?
use Second Step because it has some data and stuff with it, K-5. We do have pieces of it for K-8. But it doesn't necessarily fit into a middle school schedule because you have to do so many lessons and that's not available to us. So, and again, like any other packaged program, it's not always great. So we have used pieces of it that work really well, but our counselors and our teachers are also developing their own pieces. And that's what Vanessa and Dana have been working really hard to make sure that they coordinate it and both schools have the opportunity. We kind of develop it as we go. I mean, the good thing is we have counselors that are really willing, see the need and are willing to do this because they're not trained instructors. And so we've worked hard at that.
So the
for them to do
counselors
that.
are providing the Second Step lessons?
So in some cases, yes, depending on the Second Step lessons, yeah, they're going in. We have one, we're supposed to be talking about recognizing sexual abuse and things like that to students. And we're working with crime victims and that organization as a region to have them come in because we are not sure any of our counselors in
That's
the
a new
region are
requirement.
comfortable. It's a new requirement. And that's a territory that's a little scary. So we'll have our counselors in the room and then crime victims will come in and they'll talk at the different levels because we have to do it K-8
And that is a new requirement of what?
from New York State Ed.
Under what heading? On social emotional learning?
Under social emotional learning, it's called Aaron's Law.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have to, and that's gonna be tough because, who knows what's gonna come out.
Yeah, this is
And so-
educating the students on this K-8.
We have to educate the students. So if you can imagine,
Yeah.
I mean, we do general things about, good touch, but, the
Yeah.
general, but some of the other stuff that they're mandating, I think we're kind of waiting for guidance from New York State to maybe loosen a little, but they're not, so they're developing a program. So we should be all set with that to go next year and we'll start going in all the grade levels. So, yeah. So then here, where we're really seeing and where it really, I guess, kicks in, this is Q3 SEL behavior. And just like Jason had said before, we put Q1 and Q2 data back up there. And if you look, I don't think it's unusual. Q3 is a funky quarter. And so you'll start seeing some frustrations maybe in some of the students. In the high school, I think they're doing, a really good job. If you look, we started Q2 and remember we started really recording the truancies and adding that into the data and they've made a really significant decrease in that. And I was talking to Mark this morning, Mr. Wilson, our high school principal, and we were trying to figure out in my head numbers of when Jason and I were assistant principals, and I was thinking, okay, I remember how many were on my sheet every day to check and go through in the morning, and I don't think we're that far off. We're getting closer. So although that number looks high, if you take 750 kids times 9 periods a day times a quarter of school, that could be, that's doable. So we're getting there. And then the out-of-school suspensions,
Yeah.
you'll see the number of students and incidents, which means some of those students are repeat offenders, unfortunately.
And this is gonna be an area of investigation this summer. The state, there's legislation currently, that's been proposed, but is picking up steam, and Commissioner Rosa is a proponent, solutions, not suspensions. And it's aimed at getting schools to reduce the amount of out-of-school suspensions for students. And, and it makes sense. I mean, there's logic to it. Obviously, if you're out of school, you're not learning, and we don't have mechanisms to provide alternative instruction when they are out. So we are going to look at that as a team, and it corresponds with our assessment, our threat assessment team, and saying that there are very few incidents that truly require students being, and again, this is philosophically based, that truly require students to be removed from a school setting. But you have to go back and reevaluate your thinking and philosophy, because for as many years, 10 plus years that I've been, 15 years, both as high school principal and superintendent, we've used the term zero tolerance, and zero tolerance is kind of getting beat up in the world of education because of the idea that removing students from school settings doesn't necessarily have a benefit. So you're dealing with
To that student.
But again, unless you're causing physical harm or you threaten someone, if you smoke a cigarette in a bathroom and you're suspended 3 days, you haven't harmed anybody but yourself. Those 3 days out of school, though, has negatively impacted that student potentially 5-10-fold. So it's a different thinking. And the only thing I'll say to that is we've gone down a road of very, I say rigid, which sounds negative, but we've been very consistent in our expectations. But we're coming across a threshold where we're going to at some point be told, you're suspending too many students for too many days out of school. You have to start thinking about other alternatives. And so we need to have that conversation now, not wait until there's a legislation in front of you that says, next year you have to do X. So this is a bigger philosophical discussion. It's coming.
Well, the middle school has like detention, right? The,
Spartan room. Yeah, we do too. We have a Spartan room, yeah.
yes,
It's more, I mean, even from when we get substitute teachers and stuff that come here, I mean, they call it the country club because the kids are so well behaved. So it's kind of balancing our expectations and keeping them where they're at, but at the same time, understanding that we're dealing with a different type of kid. And I think we're in a really good place because I think if we had tried to do this maybe 5-6 years ago, it wouldn't have worked. But our teachers are really starting to understand. And again, we're educating all of us, administrators included, of what's happening out there and how it affects the students, and from the trauma and from what's going on in their lives in the real world and what they worry about. And we could go on and on. So it really is a discussion that I think we're going to make some gains, and we can still stay within what we believe in. I mean, what students should be, and we can function as an educational institution, but we definitely are going to have to address some things and what our solutions are to be creative, that we can keep that but still educate our kids. So it's going to be interesting.
It's the deterrence effect, and that's probably where we need to just have a conversation around, is suspending a student 3 days out of school for having a tobacco product on them. Does that mean they're not going to have a tobacco product? I mean, if it's, there's just so many mitigating factors that we need to look at and say, is out of school suspension the best avenue? Because if it's not a deterrent, then it's impacting them negatively.
And a lot of them are repeat who need more intervention than being suspended because they do. Like it just, it's the same kids normally that tend to get in trouble over and over again.
Well, and I think counseling and things like that years ago were poo-pooed as an intervention, but now that's part of the issue is if a student has a repeat tobacco offense, we have a bigger issue here.
Right.
Right.
So now you're suggesting interventions, counseling,
Right.
programs, you know,
Yeah.
so cessation classes, all those things. So that's what the push is. And before, there was probably a border of whether you could do that or not. So there's other interventions like that. And then just giving additional support in homes and things like that if there's other stuff going on. So
And then there's people that think, well, so now you're gonna go easy on them, you know, like there's that whole mentality
It's a
that you try to
balance.
battle with,
Right.
balance versus, you know, oh, so kids
Support
can do
them to
anything.
be better
Right.
people.
right.
You know, if you're threatening or you're physically harming someone, I mean, there's still going to be times where out of school suspension is the most appropriate and safest. It's just us having to look at, so where doesn't that make sense? And our numbers are not
No.
exorbitant,
It's a case by case.
case by case and even incident by incident,
Right.
so.
No,
Uh,
and we don't really-
And that's the art of education, right there, you know?
Oh, it's become more individualized for everyone.
Yeah.
Really quick explanation, and I should probably know this, but the truancy, 427 out of 611, what does that mean?
So they had discipline referrals, 427 out of the 611 were for truancy. So missing class for some reason or another,
Okay.
unexcused,
Okay.
unexcused. So yeah,
Okay.
so they're still dealing with some discipline, which,
Mhm.
you know,
There's still a mad rush at 7:39 to run for the door to get in and not get, every morning it's
that's
The
never
mad
changed.
rush.
It
But
never.
There's a
Every
nice
morning.
trend though.
It's the
And my
same.
middle schooler's late because the high schooler can't be late and there's screaming, it's terrible every morning.
It's the same thing at Homer Brink. You pull up and you're thinking, wow, where are all the drop-offs? And then all of a sudden, right at the drop-off minute, everyone's trying to drop their kid off at the same time.
Yeah.
So, same thing. And then again, just, these are all updated, you know, and we're just seeing the same thing. Middle school where their social, emotional, all that development shows on a normal situation. I mean, here it is. You know, social media, anything.
And this
Goes along
data,
with
like
that.
Julie said, is anecdotal because it's hard to quantify. We
It's
can do a
hard.
pie chart, I guess, you know,
But it's hard,
We'll
and
keep
they're all
working.
collecting, yeah, and then the high school too, so same thing. You know, you'll see there's more mandated counseling that's been going on, and, just, you know, parent
So you're not seeing
conferences,
these
all sorts of
numbers
stuff.
like decrease, or just kind of.
I mean, I think they're decreasing, but we're also, compared to when we came up, you know, when we came off the pandemic, but
Right.
we're also doing a better job, I think, at reaching out. So that's why it's hard to compare, because it's not, you know, we're recognizing it, we're more aware, teachers aren't, you know, you see someone crying, sometimes you're like, okay, but now it's like, okay, so-and-so was, somebody check on him. So you're not ignoring anything or thinking it's part of growing up, you know, you're really paying closer attention now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and the teachers are much more, you know, before the kid went to a counselor, you could talk to, you went there, but now the teachers are more aware and paying attention, so yeah, you're gonna see the growth. Yep.
Yeah, those counseling, like counselor only, like what are their caseloads like?
We're actually
Excuse
we're
me.
actually in good shape because we
Are
have
you?
we have 4 school counselors.
Right.
Now we had 3, so they're within the limit that the American, whatever Association of School Counselors recommends. So we're in good shape in high school. And then we have a school psychologist as well. But they do, you know, the CSD and that piece of it, and mandated counseling for special education students. So
and then
we're in
we'll,
good shape.
we'll get to Binghamton University, when that grant kicks in, we'll have a social worker supervisor and 4 interns.
Amazing.
So we'll have that to utilize.
There's always somebody in Amanda's office, always.
We're busy. We're busy.
So we'll keep refining the data to be more comparative, but now that we have a year, we'll be able to start doing some year to year, so.
Yeah, thank you, Julie.
Thank
Thank you.
All right. Next item, there's actually 2 different items regarding the changing the start and end times. I wanted to give you an update based on the last meeting. So the one says requested information from high school and athletics. This was information that was requested after we did that first kind of look into what
The time.
a time, yep. So, under high school, I asked Mark regarding BOCES. These are bullet points. This was in the Friday update, but I just wanted to give you a chance, if you have any questions. I know Mark's not here, but Julie and I can speak to this. And it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, obviously, there's gonna be some impact to what students can take, and some programs in particular will be, impacted by that. Now, every time you make a change, there's an impact. It's a matter of how do you mitigate it, but based on, you should, sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
This is, if we were to do what we suggested and just do a flip, these are some of the issues that we'd have to work around. And as Mark put at the very end, and I just took his information and copied it, with BOCES being a regional partnership, their schedule's their schedule. We have to work around it if we're doing something that's not in alignment with what they currently do. And then on the back of that, Kevin.
Can I just
sorry.
ask
Oh,
a
yeah,
question on that first
absolutely.
page? I mean, so if there's a student going to BOCES in the morning, they're gonna be late. What does that time frame look like? Like, how much are they missing of that day?
So, let me start with the run. Currently, students come in on their regular AM run, and then they have the opportunity to take a first period class. And then around 8:15, 8:20, the bus leaves the high school after the first period and then goes to BOCES to start the program. So if we were to flip that, we would not have students come here. We would have an individual bus that would have to go and pick up students that are in those BOCES programs because
From their home?
from their home. It would be a direct run. So not only would you have that, you'd have a direct run, but then you would also, they wouldn't have an opportunity for the first period because it wouldn't exist. They would be in a BOCES program. Our school wouldn't have started yet.
And the critical part there is our music.
Yeah. It's
So
always in the morning.
it's
isn't it?
first period, yeah.
Right.
And we've moved music to the middle of the day, and we've moved it to the end of the day. And both do not work well from a schedule. If you move to the middle, you lose, it's hard to explain, but you lose a lot of science labs. If you move it to the end of the day, I remember that's the first time I've ever seen Robin Littenberry upset. We tried that.
Okay.
And it's because there's so many kids involved in music, and those kids are also involved in everything else. When he's trying to teach, you're leaving here and you're leaving here and you're leaving here. So it was really, really disruptive. So we said, yep, never mind. We're going to move it back to first. And so it works at first. So those BOCES kids, and they are musicians at different, they would not be able to do that. So that's an issue.
And then last board meeting, you said we would need 2 additional buses, correct? So is that what one of those additional buses are used for this run to bring our BOCES students? Is that kind of the need,
Yeah.
why we have a need for that?
I
Or would there
believe
be
so.
additional buses, or just more?
That I would have to
Yeah,
clarify.
that was one of the reasons. And
I
the
feel
other
like
one
the
was,
two buses had almost nothing to do with that.
Well-
Because we hadn't even factored in the BOCES stuff yet.
Right.
so when you're picking up in the morning for high school, middle school, your drop off is here. So
Right.
then your buses, if you're doing the reverse, that's what Mike was explaining, then it would increase, because you're not dropping, so you're dropping off in Endwell and you're dropping off in Maine Memorial. Now those buses both have to come all the way back, whereas you're dropping off from a central location and then you go. So I think that was the 2 additional buses.
Right, but it had nothing to do with the BOCES needing
To go
runs
there.
to
Yeah.
homes
It
potentially.
may not be. And we have kids that go to our parochial schools and our other locations.
That we do.
And what
based
time
on
does the
their needs.
BOCES program end? So if it's late, if our kids are,
So we have there's 2 sessions.
Right.
So there's a morning
So the
session and an
afternoon session, what
afternoon
time is that?
session.
Probably 2:10, 2:15,
2:30-ish, I think, yeah, within
because they
there.
have to be back here to get on their bus to go
Regular
home
bus.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
at 2:30.
so they would have a much shorter window,
Well, we would get them there, it would just.
but they would
Which is
have a much
additional.
shorter window being there at both, I'm just.
No,
I
we
think
would
we
make
can
sure they
try
got
to
to
go
BOCES,
here.
but we'd have to run a different run. So
Yeah.
let's say we have 40 kids in the morning, we would have to send
Yeah,
a
well,
bus to
but
pick
so
up
like
those
the
40 kids.
afternoon kids. the kids that go
So
there.
what would happen in the afternoon, same thing, we would make sure they got to BOCES for their time. What they would lose out on is their ability to take
And
classes
stuff
here.
here, okay.
And so
Beyond what's required.
could it work? Sure, any of this could work. The
Mhm.
issue with some of our BOCES students is sometimes they're not our college-bound students, and they may be students that are repeating courses. And so they really can't afford to lose any periods because they're right on tick at graduation when they're seniors. So that's always a concern. But yeah,
So that, again, that's the initial, some of the things we have to work through. And then, for athletics, Kevin put together, a pretty substantial, because I said to him, so just what would it look like? So take everything we're currently doing and just assume that these new times. Excuse me, so he just really just extended out what today would look like if this happened. And so again, and so, you know, some of his findings are what we had talked about. So I don't think there's anything that's new. I think the one that caught us a little off guard was the impact on community groups, because if our students are using facilities later, there's not going to be room for community groups to use our facilities, because our kids go first, and then, now I don't know what negative impact that would have, but it was kind of a finding. And again, there are going to be trade-offs, no matter what we do, but we wanted to make sure that per your request, so what would they be? And this is a pretty comprehensive of what that BOCES, and then obviously what the athletics would look like.
So basically, how many of these, like, the practices would normally take place on those other places? Or is that saying maybe we'd have to bump them other places?
we'd have to move them around to get them done,
We'd have
because we've
to
always
bump
tried to
them.
get them done within a time period, yeah. And so obviously the most critical time is in the winter when we use all the gyms. And that would bump out all the community groups that use the
Right.
gyms. So, because we've lost a whole practice slot. And then same thing with the field. I mean, not only get our kids home, but we promised the neighbors not to have lights on until midnight, so.
We
So we
also
would
are,
lose a slot.
you know, the other thing too, and again, it's just something to consider. We don't have that field up at the middle school. That's in the proposal. You know, whether or not that would reduce some of this, it might, but we're talking 26. 2026, that would be done. So we're not factoring that in.
What about that field that's behind the bus garage that used to be, I just discovered it. The field behind the bus garage that now I don't think we do anything with, but I was told that used to be a playing field
In Maine?
Really?
in Maine.
I know there is like a little diamond slice of land over there that we own. I didn't know it was a practice field. I never heard that.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I can't remember. People told me when they practiced there, but I forgot.
So with that, in our agenda review, we had talked about having a survey ready to go, because, you know, what we heard from parents and community members were, I can't give you an opinion until I have an idea of what you're thinking. So this is a draft, and I know Vicky is very, astute with surveys, so I don't want to say that this is, a scientifically appropriate survey, but it's a start. So I was hoping you could give me some feedback. But obviously, we'll collect our demographic data, and then question 3, and I'm sorry it's not numbered. That to me is what we want people to know, right? Yeah.
That's my favorite question.
Potential start and end times. Here they are. What are your thoughts, concerns, or feedback?
We support it.
Would you support this? And it doesn't allow me to go strongly support. It's strongly support or strongly oppose, and then we would, it's a lightning step. And then,
I'm sorry, I was
no,
would it be appropriate to include something like this?
like in the intro,
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge amount of
Boil it
information to put with,
Like
trying to
what
make a
text.
decision. Yeah.
we certainly can make it available and say, before you take your survey, here's some more information.
Yeah.
I would want to go through it and make sure that, again, we don't want to scare people.
And this
this
is
is
really
scary.
a result of just switching.
Yeah, you're right. This is
And I
taking,
don't know how much
yeah.
they can understand
without explanation.
without explanation.
So I think you're right.
Casey, could you make it more black and white, where only 3 choices instead of 5? Like,
Or honestly,
Yes,
can we just say yes or no?
don't care, or no?
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
So that's it, then we get the answers back.
That's what I was gonna suggest, too. Can we just say yes or no?
And one of
I
them
guess
don't
we can
care.
add don't
Yeah.
care.
Neutral.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'd like to, do you support
you know, if you don't support it, why? If you do support it, why?
And that's a long answer, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, check one,
Oh, yeah, oh, so on the last page, yeah,
last page, let's
So,
talk about the last page.
yeah.
I agree about the yes, no.
Yeah.
Don't
so,
care.
so these are some of the top items that we've identified, and so I was trying to be careful not to lead the horse to water, it's just, if you don't support this, is this why? Or is this important? Now, people may pick all of them, or they might pick, you know, I don't know if that's valid, but the other, what's nice about other is you can write in what the other, so we would be able to at least, you know, we don't, and I'm not saying that's an exhaustive all list, but those are the major ones.
Can you, Jason, you know what I'm wondering, and this just might help enough, on the potential start and end times, could you put that in a table form?
Oh, yeah,
That might help, because
so it's
people,
easier to see.
yeah, just so they can see
Yeah.
it and put it like this table that
Yeah.
Mark gave
Yeah.
us. That might help too. Yeah, I think this is enough, I mean, it will,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because we've gotten a lot of
It's
these.
much longer than that, people are.
All right, yep, absolutely. And that was it. I- we
So the
don't-
goal is for this to go out when?
So we have data by June, right?
We have,
Do you want to have data by our June 12th meeting to then be like, okay, move forward, don't move forward, or do we want this? I don't know the time.
It's either now or next year, because
Yeah.
when it's summer.
Because then, right, because then you're in
Next
summer
week.
mode and you're
Yeah.
not gonna think about it.
Right.
Probably gotta go next week.
I don't understand the
Memorial Day.
bullet number 5 on if you support this change. This change is needed at this time. Doesn't feel,
Yeah, that's,
you know what, and I appreciate that, because in the first, the first one says do not support.
right?
I heard people say in the thought exchange, we don't need to do this, so in trying to keep it consistent,
Yeah,
that's the only reason, Megan, yeah.
it just seemed like a weird sentence to me.
Yeah, no, I, maybe I could word that different, but that was the whole logic.
Right, yeah, I see that matched the top.
it's not a reason, that's what you're saying.
Maybe
Right.
it's yeah.
Mhm. Um,
And I wasn't looking for, you know, a final draft tonight unless
yeah,
you thought we
well,
should.
well, but we would like to get it
Yeah.
out, so we can have information by June 12th, which only gives us a few weeks.
Yeah.
So, does anybody else have any other input on this that you would want changes? Yeah, well, I mean, it was also in the,
That's true.
right,
Yep, yep.
so. Jason, maybe you can make these changes.
Yep.
And then send it to the board.
Okay.
For like one last final, so you guys review it in your email. If there's any other changes, communicate through email, and we'll have the goal of it going out on, well, when can you send this to them?
We can have it sent out next week. I mean, it's a Google form, so that's the other thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a Survey Monkey. I did look into the product that Vicky had suggested, and I do have a call in with them to do a demo, but I don't think it will meet our timeline. But
Okay,
I can set up, we've used Google Forms. You can set it up to
They're
have all the,
easy.
yeah,
They're easy.
all the protections of, you know, a normal.
Get it all
survey.
into an Excel document, you can get all the charts you want out of it when
Yeah.
it's done.
so is it too much for you to just make these little changes, send it to the board tomorrow?
Nope.
And then we have over the weekend to look at it, think of anything else. Hopefully, can we put our response deadline on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
then if we
then,
get it turned around, we do 10 days.
yeah, I don't know what the
push.
calendar looks like, I'm just coming up with this.
Tuesday after Memorial
So,
Day?
So we could
just
prove it tomorrow.
Jason, email
23rd.
Oh, right, no,
the board Friday,
Right.
the
June
19th.
Do
5th.
we respond?
I mean, we have some time. I mean, if we targeted even like the 24th, which is a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And gave 2 weeks, that's giving us to the 7th. And we'll have it for the 12th.
Yeah.
That's, because Memorial Day weekend, we're losing a block
24th
of
is when
time
it's
there.
gonna go out to the public.
24th is when it'll go out and it'll come back on the
Move my parents up.
24th through the public, and then it's gonna be completed on the 7th.
Yep.
Completed on 7th. We'll respond to Jason by Tuesday. Is that good,
Great.
everybody? Okay,
Thank you very much.
yeah, thanks, Jason, for putting that together for us to look at.
And then the last item, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. We've been asked by the Nanticoke Valley Historical Society if we would be willing to rent the use of one of our ride-on scrubbers, floor scrubbers, to help with the J. Ralph Ingalls School, which is being currently renovated. And I know it's been offered as a community use and school use in the potential. And we have allowed the use of our, like we use our buses for the town of Maine for their summer program. So it's a reasonable request. I did reach out to Bill. It would be easiest to probably use one of the scrubbers from Maine Memorial just for convenience of travel. And then we would reach out to find one of our folks to use it. We don't want to just hand it off to someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Not that you can't figure it out, but we have people that know. So I'm asking if you're okay with us to agree to do this, and then we'll invoice whatever the charges are, and we'll go from there. And but we thought it was a reasonable request.
Sounds good.
I think we need a couple hours. We're talking literally a couple hours. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
And that ends my report.
All right, thank you, Jason. Okay, moving on, we just have a couple things from the board. Our August workshop, so we've been in a little bit of discussion. It's gonna be August 7th, as everybody knows, you should have it on your calendar. Instead of myself or the development committee facilitating, we have had the discussion of having a NYSBA representative gonna come on down and going to be the facilitator of the meeting. It's gonna be about, our strengths, our weaknesses. It's gonna be how can the board support the strategic plan. It's gonna be some goal setting. And so we're going to block out that time and complete reserving the NYSBA to come down. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that that's the direction that we're gonna move this year. The superintendent evaluation process is gonna be also a little bit different this year. We attended, actually Lynn really attended a meeting during our NYSBA conference regarding the superintendent evaluation. So as you know, Jason's completed it. Now is going to be our turn to go ahead and complete our evaluation. And then we have that special meeting that everybody should have in their calendar for June 5th at 6 p.m., which will come here. It's just amongst those board members for discussion of the evaluation. Then our June 12th board meeting, we will go ahead and present it to Jason, okay? So that's how we're looking. So therefore, we may be looking at our calendar for the 23-24 school year to make sure we don't have to throw in a special meeting. So we may be changing that a little bit to make this timeline work.
So we used to, in executive session, before we talked to Jason, he would leave the room and we'd have the discussion ahead of time. And then now it wasn't a full meeting, it was just
the time before. So the reason that they suggest you to do it as a weeks in advance is therefore after you have the discussion, like we won't close it out yet. If there's things that you want to add or change or make adjustments to your evaluation, you have that time, and then we go ahead and present it clearly to Jason. So that was NYSBA's recommendation. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like we did do that, but
Okay.
it's not, full meeting.
Right. Yeah.
You're right, you could change at that point, though, you could change it.
Right, you're right. So that's the reasoning of why we give it that little time frame. The policy review proposal, NYSBA policy review proposal. I'm not sure what that was.
So we had, in 2017, the board had agreed to contract with NYSBA.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
And NYSBA does a full review of all of our policies.
Yes, thank
They
you.
look at current language with language that maybe we should have. And then they also offer suggestions and recommendations on policies maybe we don't have, but aren't required. So it's just a comprehensive,
Right.
really an audit. And Diana did some research. If we did ask NISBA to go forward, it's called Policy Compliance Review. It's $3,500. And we're a NISBA member, so that's a discount. And it takes about 10 weeks. And then the policy committee, I'm thinking, once we get all that recommendation, we work through that.
Sounds great.
So I recommend it because I've seen it done and it's very comprehensive and they do a great job.
Yeah, and like you said, it was what, like 7 years?
Yeah, it's been
It's
since, yeah.
been 7 years since we've had it done, so we did
Yeah,
have
and
the
a lot of the
discussion that
changes
might
they
be good.
recommend are something you wouldn't pick up on,
Right,
right?
right.
Or they're state, state
State mandated.
Many
mandated
changes.
things that we might not have in
Yeah.
there that they
Right.
pick up on, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so we were just going to have to make sure everybody was okay with us going ahead and doing that.
On the other hand, they missed the fact that we didn't have insurance requirements in our use of facilities.
Oh, right, I know. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, we took care of that.
Right.
Yeah. No, so Diana and I will touch base and we'll
Okay.
get that scheduled.
Okay, and then I sent you an email just to do RSVPs if there's anybody that's able to attend our 32nd Broom Tioga Scholastic Dinner. I will be attending, I don't know if there's any, Lindsay, Megan, great. Mike, you available or?
When is it again?
So it is, June 15th, it's at 6 PM and it's at the DoubleTree.
Baseball.
All right, yeah. Okay, so I don't know if,
I will take care of RSVPs.
okay,
Lynn, no?
she's out of
Okay.
town.
So Lindsay, Megan, Melinda.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
And then, I didn't have this on the agenda, but the retirement dinner, just to bring that up again, because we won't see before. It's at 6 PM at Endwell Greens, I'm sorry, I
It's,
missed.
yeah, it is,
June 20
it is June 26th. It's the Monday after graduation.
Yes.
We're currently working on logistics. It's gonna be more of a celebration because we're doing 4 retirement groups. So it'll be a little different format, but, we still wanna make everyone feel special and recognized. But it'll be a different than the last time we did it because it was a smaller group and it was a little more intimate, so. But it'll be nice. It'll be fun. So, and we'll put out, you'll all get an invitation. And I know Jen is working on, we're making sure that we don't miss anybody. So we're going through our list to make sure that, so.
Going back 4 years is a tough list to go through.
Yeah,
and-
it's a pretty big group. But again, not everyone will attend. That's normal, but, if they do with spouses or significant other and all of us, we're looking at, 100, around 100, 110. So it'll be a big gathering.
Yep, so just want to give you a heads up
Thank
on
you.
that
Yeah,
date
thank you
and
for that.
time.
I just wanted to say I went to the Graduate of Distinction dinner and how wonderful that was. I left there just feeling so good about that event and our graduates and how nice it was, the high school students that introduced them and the graduates got to walk around the buildings. It was just, and they talked about teachers that impacted them. I mean, it just from so many different angles, it was just a wonderful event and can't speak highly enough. Hope you can all make it. It just shows you the success of education,
I've gone to many.
Yeah,
It is a nice
lovely.
event.
Lovely.
National Honor Society was last night. How many got inducted?
44. That was a great ceremony. Katie Simic and Nikki Kane are 2 high school guide counselors. And Ava was front and center, had a MC role. Nice ceremony though, appropriate, formal, but not, it didn't drag on. It was under an hour and it felt appropriate. Not to mention, the high school being air conditioned, just saying from years ago when it wasn't, it was very nice.
Great
So
improvement.
beautiful ceremony. Kids did a great job.
I started a big discussion in our house yesterday.
Is there anything else from the board? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on down to our consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve consent items 4.1 to 4.6 under the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Megan,
I'll second.
second by Len. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is the personnel items. May I have a motion to approve personnel items 5.1 through 5.4?
So moved.
Moved by Greg, 5.14. Moved by Greg, second by Lindsay. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Next is new business. May I have a motion to approve item 6.1 to 6.10?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Lynn, second by Mike. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do you have anybody, nothing for public comment? And, okay. So, since no one wishes to speak during public comment, I will dispense the reading of the guidelines. And we're going to go ahead and move into executive session. At this time, the board will enter into executive session to discuss pending litigation, student A, employee A, superintendent self-evaluation. We anticipate no further actions, and we will resume the regular sessions shortly. May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
Second.
Greg and Mike, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
So, Ava, do we know who your replacement